You can boast about running a generator constantly in your estate, but what you don't know is that it could be silently suffocating you. Get this, at a certain level, just 5 minutes of carbon monoxide exposure is enough to be fatal. If you didn't know this, generator films contain carbon monoxide. So, how else will you power your home without generators? Go green with Arnergy. Our solar energy units not only provide your home with a stable and sustainable power supply, but it protects your living space and ensure that you and your family enjoy clean health free from carbon poisoning. Call and connect with us today to schedule a free consultation with our experts. You can boast about running a generator constantly in your estate, but what you don't know is that it could be silently suffocating you. Get this, at a certain level, just 5 minutes of carbon monoxide exposure is enough to be fatal. If you didn't know this, generator films contain carbon monoxide. So, how else will you power your home without generators? Go green with Arnergy. Our solar energy units not only provide your home with a stable and sustainable power supply, but it protects your living space and ensure that you and your family enjoy clean health free from carbon poisoning. Call and connect with us today to schedule a free consultation with our experts. You can boast about running a generator constantly in your estate, but what you don't know is that it could be silently suffocating you. Get this, at a certain level, just 5 minutes of carbon monoxide exposure is enough to be fatal. If you didn't know this, generator films contain carbon monoxide. So, how else do you power your home without generators? Go green with Arnergy. Our solar energy units not only provide your home with a stable and sustainable power supply, but it protects your living space and ensures that you and your family enjoy clean health free from carbon poisoning. Call and connect with us today to schedule a free consultation with our experts.
Good morning, ladies and gentlemen. If you can hear me, can you just maybe type in the chat box or just wave your hand? I hope I'm audible. Good morning, everyone. It's good to have you in this session today. For those of you joining us on YouTube Live, you're welcome. We're all happy to have you here. As usual, just before we get started, let's get to meet each other. So in the chat box, if you can just type where you're joining us from, let's get to know our audience today. So just on the chat box, you can type where you're joining us from. And so I'm joining from Lagos today, and that's Lagos in Nigeria. So our speakers, you can also type in the chat box, where you're joining us from. Okay, so I can see Lagos, Nigeria, Lagos. Oh, Abuja. Okay, you're welcome. I can see Nairobi, Kenya. You're welcome today. Mohammed from Kaduna. Great, you're welcome. It looks like Lagos is taking the lead. We're happy to have you today's session. Do we have more people joining us from outside Lagos? Okay, I can see Aja, Lagos. Okay, Gift and Perry from Lagos as well. Okay, now we have Oyo. Bolaji from Oyo, it's good to have you here. Okay. Okay, Falade from Lagos. Okay, so looks like majority of us were joining from Lagos. So thank you all for joining today. It's going to be an exciting session. So like you all know, this is our quarterly energy sustainability series, and my name is Izine Meyono. I will be moderating this session today, and I'm very excited to have you all here and to host this webinar. So if this is your first time joining this series, this energy sustainability series, we hold this every quarter. So thank you for joining us. And we know you're going to have a great time listening and sharing ideas, with our experts as well. Today's topic is the role of renewable energy in managing the rising energy costs. And we know that we're going to benefit from this discussion today. So let me just tell you a little bit about the Energy Sustainability Series. It's a virtual program positioned to bring together experts, players in the energy sector, financiers, to share knowledge with you, our audience, and provide valuable insights to help bridge the energy deficit gap. So for this quarter, like I mentioned earlier, we are discussing the role of renewable energy in managing the rising energy costs. I would like to, before I introduce our speakers, I would like to just give a little bit of background on why we are here and why we are having this conversation. Well, electricity, like they say, is the backbone of modern life, right? And I'm sure we all like this modern life. We all want to, enjoy modern life. Electricity is one of the greatest invention, that's if not the greatest invention in the history, in history today. And this is because it opened people up to a whole new world. Imagine what life would be without power. Without power, the world will never be able to innovate. Most inventions probably wouldn't have happened, without electricity. And take a look at the gadgets that we all use today. Look at the appliances, look at tools, machinery, that we all use. All these wouldn't have happened without electricity. So this is really, really vital, and it is important in our everyday life. But how do we ensure we have stable electricity in Africa? I came across an article some time ago in African Energy Outlook 2022, and it's outlined the overlapping crises of COVID-19 pandemic, coupled with the Russian-Ukraine conflicts, and how this is affecting many parts of Africa's energy system. And the effects of this meant that all the positive trends in, in improving access to modern energy sort of went in reverse. So he went further to also state that 25 million more people in Africa are living without electricity than before the pandemic. This is huge, and the implication of this global crisis, this global energy crisis, has resulted in accelerated spending, on the power supply, which negatively affects businesses in terms of profitability, as well as household income across Africa. So for instance, the African Development Bank estimated that Nigerians now spend about $14 billion on generators and fuel yearly to provide alternative power for their homes and their businesses. And in 2022 alone, we are in September. And so far, the average diesel price in Nigeria has increased by over 160%, and during this same period, we've had, we've suffered, about 6 collapses, the national grid collapses. And of course, in addition to the recent threat of industrial action from the transmission workers, I'm sure we all also, we're aware of that, we experienced that as well. So one common trend that we've seen, across Africa amidst the ongoing energy crisis has been the growth in adoption and investment in renewables. But I know that some people still have concerns, some people still have questions, some people still need clarification. There was a review of African energy in 2021 by PwC, and it revealed that renewable energy is on a gradual rise across the continent. So, with an annual growth rate of 21% between, I think, the year 2020 and 2010 to year 2020. And Africa's total installed renewable energy capacity has grown by over 24 gigawatts since 2013. So this improvement confirms BP's recent projection that around 30% of Africa's energy production will be derived from solar by year 2050. So the question is, in Africa, are we ready to take this on? Are we ready? Do we know what it entails? Renewable energy has been proven to be highly efficient and cost-effective. Do we even know how to proceed, to purchase renewable energy? And the big question is also how businesses and households in Africa utilize these renewables to minimize the adverse effects of rising energy costs and etc. But let's hear from our experts today. They will be shedding more light on this energy crisis, the rising costs, and the role of renewables. We're going to learn a lot from them. They're bringing their A game on, but let me also let you just a little bit about the company giving us this platform to have this discussion today. So about Arnergy. Arnergy Solar Limited is a distributed company that offers commoditized solar plus lithium storage solutions in Africa. Our vision is to provide sustainable solutions to energy reliability issues across emerging markets. And at Arnergy, we deliver reliable and clean 24/7 power supply suitable for powering equipment in your homes, offices, and the products ensure convenience. It ensures stability and also help you save electricity and diesel costs while providing flexible payment options. So without further ado, let's get into the discussion of the day. So we'll start by meeting our speakers. Our first speaker today is Mr. David Idem. So I'll just tell you a little bit about Mr. David. He's currently the CEO of Wavelength Solar Limited, with skills in organizational strategy and business management. He holds the first degree in economics and education from Lagos State University and has over 16 years of work experience that spans several industries, including media and advertising, NGO, real estate, mortgage banking, entertainment, agriculture, and renewable energy. Mr. David is a versatile and accomplished executive with expertise in multi-channel product sales and marketing, commercial operations, and organizational strategy in startup and growth companies. He has a track record of developing best fit and most effective renewable energy solutions for households and businesses. He has developed and built a team of energy enthusiasts across the country while contributing to the achievement of SDG 7 and 13 goals. So let's make welcome Mr. David. I will proceed to introduce the next speaker. So we have Ama Sapong. She's joining us from Ghana today. So Ama is a leader and communicator in the energy and sustainability industry with a focus on how West African nations can maximize their energy resources aligned with UN SDGs. She's an exploration team leader with Eni Ghana, where she works with dynamic teams to explore oil and gas resources. Her work has contributed to the successful discovery of hydrocarbon reserves in the sub-region. As a skilled communicator, she has expertise in building and managing relationships with energy stakeholders to ensure the successful execution of projects. She has an MBA in energy and sustainability from the University of Cumbria, United Kingdom, where she has extensively researched the sector's transition towards low carbon emissions, the underlying business case, and emerging skill gap. Ama is passionate about empowering women in the energy sector through interdisciplinary networking, advocacy, mentoring, to promote the participation of women in the energy sector and a just energy transition. She's the co-founder of Energy Career Blueprints, an initiative that assists young professionals, particularly women, to navigate careers in the energy and sustainability industry. Thank you for joining us today, Ama. And our last but not the least speaker today is our very own Mr. Tayo Ogidon. So he is currently the managing director of Alternatio Navitas Nigeria Limited, where he oversees the off-grid electricity generation and IPPs for schools, hospitals, residential estates, telecom masts, rollout of propane generators, propane gas in consortium with OG Power and Vital Energy, as well as energy audits. With a background in demography and statistics, Mr. Ogidon proceeded to work in financial services. So that's where he started his career as well, as a financial advisor at Cable Halsey in the City of London from 1986. So he's been, across several industries in the UK, handling the Westminster Council, right to buy scheme, mortgage placements, and others, from financial advice to mortgages to managing property portfolios. And in 2012, he became the managing director of Banksome Renewable Energy, where he managed the energy conservation drive, renewable off-grid energy generation, energy storage, alternative energy solution in West African region. So today, we're going to be hearing from these experts. They have amazing insight to share with us today. And let them say hello to the audience, and then we get right into the discussion of the day.
Hi, everyone. This is Ama from Ghana. So nice to meet everyone. And then I'm hoping that we can have a very insightful conversation today.
Thank you very much, Ama.
Yeah. Hi, everybody. My name is David Idem, seated here in Lagos. I'm quite excited to meet everyone here, and I'm trusting that we're going to have an interactive session together. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. David.
And hi, everyone. My name is Tayo Gidon from Multinational Navitas. Pleased to have everybody on board. I'm quite excited as to sharing our experiences and listening to others on the panel. And we hope we're able to actually give a lot of guidance into foreign to the renewable energy world and how to lower your costs. Thank you.
Thank you very much. So our discussion points today, we have 3 discussion points, and then we take each one of them, and then we have questions for the speakers to fully discuss this. So the first one is we're discussing the effects of the ongoing energy crisis on households and businesses. And then second one, we're analyzing the renewable energy, the green energy trends in Africa. And the third, we'll be examining the viability of renewable energy and our energy demands. So let me just get started with our first question, which is to Mr. David Idem. So many homes and businesses are aware of the increasing energy costs, as seen in the fuel price hike and increasing electricity tariff. Can you share more insights about this challenge? What is the root cause of this rising energy costs? Mr. David.
All right. Hello. Thank you very much, isn't there? Can you hear me?
Loud and clear, sir.
Okay. I'm happy to handle this. Currently, we know that every home and businesses in Nigeria is affected by this ever-rising cost of energy. Of course, that is evident in the cost of transportation, increase in company OPEX, and also price of commodity in the market. It is important for us to lay background to this, specific to Nigeria. Reports indicated that in 4 years, between 2017 and 2020, federal government actually borrowed 1.3 trillion to subsidize electricity. And this was projected to jump to 3.08 trillion by 2023 if the tariff remained the same. But of course, with the dwindling revenue of the government, it was inevitable that government would actually remove subsidy on electricity. And another thing is that study also indicated that 80% of this subsidy actually benefits just 40% populations in the in the end. Because of this, government also, you see that the electricity tariff has actually gone up because currently government is not paying that subsidy anymore. Of course, at this point in time, it is a phased withdrawal. And so it's expected that as time goes on, the tariff may also go up. And I believe that maybe after election, we may pay a higher tariff of electricity going forward. And of course, with this in mind, you also know that the Russian and Ukraine war, which you mentioned earlier, is also partly to blame for the current surge in the prices of diesel. Would also add to the COVID-19 pandemic that actually affected the production capacity of some of the refineries that we import these products from. And so that's also contributed to the rising cost of diesel in Nigerian market. Even though the Ukraine war is not only affecting Nigeria, it's not peculiar to Nigeria, there's also a pressure on foreign exchange, Forex. And of course, when you import, and as I speak to you today, the exchange rate to Naira in the parallel market is about 718 Naira. And of course, as you import, it's going to have a direct effect on the cost of diesel and all that. As of today, diesel prices goes between 720 to 780. it's expected that in the next few months, it will go up. Between in May and September this year, the diesel price has actually gone up by 40%. And that 40%, means that the operating cost of businesses has also increased by another 40%. And so it is not looking good, when you look at some of the indices and economic indices, that the price of diesel and fuel will come down in the near foreseeable future. I must also state here that apart from the removal of subsidy on electricity tariff, government is also thinking of removing fuels, from the petroleum product, because government is expected to spend about 16 point something billion every month on subsidy. And that is huge, So sooner or later, government will certainly remove fuel subsidy, and once that happens, the fuel price will actually increase. The fuel pump price will actually increase by almost 100%. As at now, we're buying at between 270 for those in Lagos, and outside Lagos, people already buying, 300 and all that. But it's expected that with the removal of subsidy, the fuel pump price will go up to about 400 and something naira per liter. And that will have a negative effect on the economy. Of course, you know that in Nigeria today, we have about 22 million small generator, in the country today. And by the time you check people that are buying, these better pass my neighbor generator that we call it, and what we spend annually on that generator is about 14 billion, naira, monthly on to maintain this generator. So with all this in mind, by the time you add all this together, you could see that the energy crisis, is becoming like endemic in the country. In 2022 alone, like you said, the national grid has actually collapsed 7 times. 7 times. So that is a major concern. And of course, I'm more happy that this opportunity has come for people to know that time has come for us to, to transit to renewable energy. Thank you.
Thank you so much. Thank you very much, Mr. David. That's very insightful. Actually, 7 times. I remember I said 6 times, but wow. And I lost count right there. So to the audience, if you have questions while the speakers are talking, just type in your question in the Q&A session, in the Q&A box, and they will take your questions as we go on, okay? So send in your questions to the Q&A session. You can also mention the speaker you'd like to take your questions. Okay, let's move on to Amma. So what are the immediate and long-term effects of the rising energy costs on both household income and business operation expenses?
Okay, so before we actually talk about the rising energy cost, I know that my background in oil and gas actually helps me appreciate the energy transition even more, and the need for economies and individuals, households, and businesses to move towards renewable energy. Getting into the actual cost of rising energy as a whole, let's first talk about the energy sustainability. And I'd like to borrow a definition from a very good friend, where he breaks it down as first looking at energy availability in Africa or in Nigeria, if we want to zoom into. We have a number of resources, be it the sun available 24/7. We have increasing potential in wind energy. We have our original or our natural, traditional fossil fuel energy sources, some of which still needs to be attained. But we can see a global transition where the world is moving towards energy efficiency, energy transitioning towards renewable energy. So that's energy availability on its own for Africa. We have the resources. Now we move to energy accessibility. Are communities, industries, businesses, and individuals able to access the available energy that has been generated? So you come to Nigeria, for instance, where a lot of the energy is being produced, but how many communities actually have access to reliable and sustainable energy? So that being said, we see a huge gap that needs to be filled for the energy accessibility, whether it's through distribution or generation through the grids and all of that. Then we come to the energy costs on its own. Whether the energy is available or accessible, cost plays a huge impact or a huge role. And we've seen from the input that has been given by you and David, the Russian-Ukraine war has contributed to increasing energy prices. And so we see price at the pumps being increased. Our electricity bills have skyrocketed all because of this. So the implications are both, like you mentioned, long-term and short-term. Other contributions such as economies that are now trying to recover from a post-COVID era. Finally, if you also take into consideration the fact that oil and gas resources are beginning to decline, so that means that we need to find alternative sources of energy. That being said, the immediate effect that we would see is that there is a growing enthusiasm for renewable energy, as we can see. People want to make sure that they cut down their electricity costs so that it doesn't affect their businesses. So in the long term, you'd also try to understand that although we are moving towards cleaner energy sources, because of the focus of trying to revive businesses, we may lose track of the agenda or the goal for where climate change used to be at the helm of conversations. Now businesses will try to, improve or pick up their businesses so that they don't fall prone to some of these volatilities in the industry. So what is happening now in the immediate term, there's growing enthusiasm in renewables. A lot of even oil companies now are beginning to call themselves energy companies. Why? Because they see the opportunity there. They see the opportunity to increase the energy mix into renewables, solar. The company I work for, doing a number of projects, even what Arnergy is doing right now with the solar that we can see. So there's a growing interest in renewable, that is in the short term. And in the long term, we need to think of a more sustainable way to ensure that economies can survive.
Thank you very much, Ama. Thank you. That's key. We need to think of more sustainable ways. Okay, let's move on to Mr. Tayo. So based on your experience and expert knowledge, how quickly can the ongoing energy crisis be resolved? Can we expect the energy prices to fall anytime soon? Mr. Tayo, you're muted. Don't know if you're speaking. Okay.
I was trying to. My apologies.
It's fine, sir.
Thank you, guys. Thank you, Zene. Thank you, Amma. I'll particularly like to thank David because what David was able to do was to give us figures, which though alarming, are actually really poignant when you look at the state of play. So if you go back to all the bits that David was giving us, the number of times that the grid has collapsed, how much money we're spending on generators for importation of generators in dollars, how much money has been spent on the upkeep of those generators, it gives you the idea of how much money is there. So what I'm going to try and concentrate on, I haven't given those figures, is I'm going to try and link the macro, which is that overall figures, to the micro. How does it really affect me individually? So I'll be coming from that aspect from a general basis. So I'll kick off by saying necessity is the mother of invention. I don't know about Ghana, but the Ghanaians learned a lot from us, and they were able to actually pick up on certain things that Nigeria did wrong. Why do I say necessity is the mother of invention? I think Ezena's question is the ongoing energy crisis And the second part of the question is if the prices will drop. So let me touch on the second part of the question. Having lived in different parts of the world, there are some places where there are a lot of stability, or there was a lot of stability, like the UK. But hey, presto, they're realizing that the world has become a global village. So no longer any stability. Prices of energy are now skyrocketing. Yes, like David said and Amma said, you're talking about Ukraine, you're talking about gas, dependency on gas to generate power. But the point is, because you don't know what comes around the corner, we are only going to be able to look at our experiences and provide for ourselves. Now, I mentioned that aspect because from a Nigerian perspective, I have never seen anything drop. The dollar is on the rise. I think when my father was around, the pound was 1-to-1. Now, so a few years back, not too long ago, the dollar was about 300-to-1. Now we're talking about the dollar at 700-to-1 or thereabouts. So as per what is going to drop, I don't know. But then we've got to start to look at demand and supply. The UK today are experiencing a spike in energy prices, but which really does not affect us. The reason that doesn't affect us is that our energy prices, I believe, are regulated. Now, so the energy itself, the price is not affected and they're not being changed that very often, albeit they're under review. But what you have no control over is the issue of the fact that the collapse that's been mentioned twice, I think by Izene and David, it's collapsed 7 times. Now, so your dependency on you generating for yourself becomes more important. And therefore, to kind of like sum it up, I don't see a scenario where energy prices are going to drop soon. But what that does, coming back to the beginning of my statement of the necessity being the mother of invention, is we now have to look internally. What do I have to do to be my own provider? And therefore takes me to sustainability, right? We've got the sun, we've got solar. What can I do in my own individual home that will make me less reliant on the grid to start with, which has been totally, like I said, not ineffective, but not reliable, and also less reliant on fossil fuels. And that's why I believe sustainability will start to play, not just, it's starting to play an important part, but would absolutely start to, it'll be a roll-on effect, because there's an awareness now that my neighbor has X or is going off grid, and what do I need to do? And that's where I think we're at the moment. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Mr. Tayo. Thank you very much for that insights. Okay, so our next question is for Amma. So what are the ongoing green energy trends in Africa? Can you shed more light on this?
Okay, so what we are beginning to see now with the energy transition is that, let me focus on companies first. Companies are now seeing CO2 reduction as a competitive advantage for their businesses. So companies that are going the extra mile to offset CO2, produce low carbon technologies or use low carbon technologies. Even before diversifying into renewables, you would notice that these companies are receiving grants from World Bank and all of that. So you'd see that the trend now for green energy investment is increasing at a higher pace as compared to previously. We have situations where smart grids have now become very valuable and very useful, because you can now integrate the solar battery storage if you need it, if you can switch to the off-grid, on-grid. So those types of technologies now are what we see increasing the trends for green energy solutions. As well, low carbon technologies, as I've mentioned, balancing and offsetting CO2s, carbon capture and storage is also now becoming a trend that we see a lot of companies going into. Then the investments, for instance, for Africa, where we have abundance of minerals such as lithium, we should be able to commercialize our lithium production so that instead of importing batteries from abroad, now we are producing it right here on Africa. That really reduces our capex for such solar powered projects. So that is really where the trend is beginning to go from now within the next 5 years, in terms of increasing capacity building so that now the human skills themselves can be well informed on green technologies so that we don't need to send our resources abroad to go and school them, but we have them right here and are well educated on our African soil. So that's the trend for green energy for Africa.
Thank you very much, Ama. That's an amazing information right there. So just to remind the audience, if you have questions, you can send them to the Q&A session, and we will take them as we proceed, okay? All right, so our next question is for Mr. David. What factors make the African energy market attractive for renewable energy solutions and investments? Mr. David.
Thank you, Isn't it is known that Africa presently has the most attractive market for renewable energy solutions. And one of the reasons is not far-fetched. The reasons are not far-fetched because first, there's prevalence of energy poverty in Africa. Currently, 570 million people in sub-Saharan Africa remain without energy access. And about 906 million people still lack access to clean cooking fuels and technologies. And of course, in Africa, it's a case of necessity for renewable energy, whereas in America, in the Western world, is about growth. But for us, we don't really have. So where there are gaps, that's a huge business opportunity, for investment. Like I said, I will use Nigeria as an example. I said earlier that we spent over $14 billion annually, equivalent about 5 trillion naira on small-scale generator. And these are generators that are toxic to the environment. And from this generator, starkly, about 1,500 people died annually from inhalation of generator fumes. And so if we're able to bring in alternative source of power, the $14 billion used in procurement of 22 million small-scale generators will certainly go into purchase of renewable energy solutions. And so it is also a report from World Bank also indicated that in Nigeria alone, we have a market potential of $9.2 billion every year. Renewable energy has $9.2 billion market. And that is a huge opportunity for investors to come in. And then population growth is also what makes African market attractive. You also know that in Africa is a commodity market. Our economy is a commodity economy. We export primary products. So most countries are in a hurry, to develop, to industrialize the economy, to diversify the economy, and go into proper production and manufacturing. And of course, energy is required, to achieve all this. And that further makes African market quite attractive to investors to come in. And in Africa, like Amma said, We are blessed with vast resources of renewable energy in terms of wind, solar, hydro, geothermal energy. We have abundant resources. Just like maybe last year, Tesla came to Nigeria, to mine lithium and all that. And if you check, you see so many foreign companies coming to Africa to mine all these resources that are used in the production of lithium batteries and some other components. And so that resources alone is also an attraction that makes African market. Of course, nearness to raw material is key to citing an industry. So that also portrays the fact that African market, is ripe, it's a go-to place for investment in renewable energy. Then recently, after COP26, that a lot of funding is coming to Africa in terms of subsidy. There are some programs that we're running now with NEP, supported by World Bank. The World Bank subsidized deployment of solar home system. About 20% of the selling price is actually taken off by this subsidy to make the solution affordable to our people. And so for anybody coming to Africa to set up, either panel production, manufacturing facility in Africa, is assured of recouping, his investment. And then in January, Universal Energy Fund is also providing subsidy, to support deployment of both solar home system and standalone solution between 1 kilowatt and 5 kilowatt, strictly for productive use. And so combining all this together, it makes African market, in terms of the gaps that are here, in terms of the population growth, in terms of the need to bridge this gap, to transition from fossil fuel energy to renewable energy, it is important people bring in money to Africa to set up these facilities and make money. That's what makes African market attractive. Thank you.
Thank you very much for that information. So for those listening, you've heard that, right? So if you have questions, you need further clarification on that, just send in your questions to the Q&A. I can see questions coming in. We will take them shortly. Let's still hear a bit more from our speakers. So let's go to Mr. Tayo. In conversing with consumers from other sectors, what will you highlight as the key reasons why they should consider renewable energy solutions?
So, President, thank you very much, and thank you everybody else. I've got only one word for you. One, cost. End of story. Cost. How does it affect me? Period. Cost. So, now we know that the energy crisis is multifaceted, all different directions coming out here, as both my guest speakers have said. I would require both public and private sector intervention to move us forward. But, there are policies coming on board. You've got all different areas which have been looked at. But most importantly, when it comes to talking about all of the different sectors, business owners, the various areas, I'm going to like to share some of my experiences with you. We tend to go out and do a few energy audits. So I'll give you an example for confidentiality's sake. I'm not going to mention which hotels, but I'm going to talk about two major hotels in Lagos. One of them prides itself in 24-hour power, does not blink, doesn't go off the ball, it's just come on and only 2 seconds. Now, the only reason they can do that is because they're totally off-grid. They've got 4 one-make systems, one run as a redundancy. They've got a really interesting modulation to their generators, and I'll come to that, for example, when necessity becomes a mother of invention. But I'll attack the cost first. The general manager, who's a very good friend of mine, said, When he first arrived in Nigeria a few years back, his cost of fuel was, I think, 30 or 40% of his overall cost of service. I mean, that's what he will be spending on keeping his lights on. Between then and now, that's now gone up to, I think he says about 65%. So if the 65% of his cost of running a 5-star hotel in Lagos means that before he spends, for every maybe 100 million naira it brings in, before he sells his first bottle of Star, he spent 65 million on keeping his lights on. I mean, you can't be rest assured that he's in there to make a profit, therefore he's going to transfer the profit, he's going to transfer the cost onto his customers. He spends about $1 million a year just to keep his lights on. That's what I mean cost. That's on the big ones. I did an experiment a little while back. I was at that time visiting Lagos, and I was having dinner at my sister's house. And we were talking with my missus, we were talking about his generator and how much he spent on his gen. And the conversation between him and my wife went on and on, back and forth. And my wife's not Nigerian, so she's trying to get her figure around how much is that in sterling? How much is that sterling? When she finally came around to the understanding how much Joe was talking about, guess the first thing she said? She looks across at me and said, that's a little bit less than we pay for our mortgage. So what my brother-in-law in the middle of Africa was paying to power his house was about the same that we were paying to own our home in the UK. So absolute cost. Any way which way you look at it, you're talking cost. You go to the hospitals, you're talking cost. It therefore affects your healthcare. You go to hotels, you're talking cost. So it therefore affects the cost of service or how much you're going to provide service. So on that particular question, again, because of the cost, you can look at it as a dire situation. But we also know that the next door neighbor syndrome is what we're about in Africa. So if Joe next door is powering his house because he put 2 panels on top of his house and is powering his house at 29 more than I do, let me even go and buy a bigger system. So I will power my house at 14 naira less than Joe does. So I think we started off from a negative perspective. The good news is there are solutions. And the solution for us now is renewable energy. I'm not sure if I've taken the second part of the question. So just give me a second. Yes. Yes, I'll leave that for the time being, and I'll just deal with costs. I think I missed some of your questions. Can you link on it once more, isn't it?
Yes, I think you covered the question. So
Okay.
The question was, what will you highlight as the key reason why they should consider renewable energy solution? And I think you've covered that brilliantly. Thank you very much, Mr. Tayo. And we'll move on to Ama. How viable are renewable energy solutions for larger businesses and industries? Can they be deployed for mega projects?
Just listening to what Mr. Tayo said about the hotel owner, I think that you can tell from that scale that large mega scale renewable energy products are viable. But there are a number of factors that we need to address. The factors that are hindering a smooth or an easy execution of large scale projects. And I think there are 3 of them that I want to touch on. The first one is reducing or tackling the issue of manufacturing. For Mr. Tayo's friend to execute that large scale project, imagine that his solar PV panels have all been imported from X country, right? How much, with the exchange rate we have today, do we think that it's going to be easy to handle such large scale projects? Now imagine that these solar PV panels have been manufactured in Nigeria. Automatically, you reduce that cost. If the personnel who are putting the solar panels together, the expertise, have all been trained locally, obviously there's a cost reduction in that aspect as well, because then you are now reducing the capex of your solar project. So if we are able to reduce the manufacturing hindrance, then such large scale projects will be feasible. Number two, financing. I think that, or we know that Africa, for instance, in the past 2 decades, has not really benefited from a lot of investments. Only until recently that we are beginning to see that funds flow into Africa for such renewable projects. So the cost that it takes to fund such large-scale projects, it evolves a lot. And for companies like Arnergy, where you have systems in place to pre-finance such projects and to help people, make investing in renewables attractive for people. That's another area that needs to be looked at. And then the last point will be policy. I did a research recently talking to the Ministry of Energy, where I was asking how viable such projects can be. How attractive is the environment for investing into renewable when there's little to no policies on renewables that, for instance, mandate companies to invest or to increase their renewable energy mix. In Ghana, we are now implementing our energy transition plan that will be soon released. That tells you that there's a huge policy gap. So if there is financing available, if the issue of manufacturing is addressed, and yet there are no policies by government put in place to ensure that execution of renewable projects can happen in an effective and a fast manner, then I'm sorry, it will take a much longer time for such projects to be executed. So is it viable? Is it possible? Yes, but how quickly that can happen depends on some of the factors that I have mentioned. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Amma. Thank you. We have a poll, some questions that I would like to also hear from the audience as well. So the poll will come up any second from now. So once the questions pop on your screen, just respond, choose your responses, and then let's tackle them right here as well. So the speakers will be able to analyze the results and also answer some of the questions from the poll as well. So the poll will come up any second from now. So once it pops up, let's respond. So we will proceed. We have some questions in the Q&A. Okay, so I think the poll is up. Yes, I can see it on my screen now. So kindly respond to the poll, choose the right option for you, and let's understand a bit more about your situation. Okay, so while the poll is going, we will proceed to the next question for the next speaker. We will soon take the questions in the Q&A. I can see those questions coming in. So just proceed, continue dropping in your questions. We will take them shortly. So let's move on to the next speaker. So thank you very much, Amma, for your response and to that question. So the next question is for Mr. Tayo. So please share some experiences with us on projects or scenarios using renewable energy to resolve real-life challenges successfully. I know you've also touched on this, but if you can share a bit more in-depth, insight into this, that would be great. So,
right. Yeah, thanks a lot, Ezina. I'm going to start with this, the concept of how, the relationship between energy efficiency with an energy conservation. Energy conservation born out of habits. I pump into my house, I don't leave all the lights on, turn all my TVs off if I'm not there, turn my air conditioners off if I'm not in the room, as opposed efficiency, which is using the right products to get maximum achievement at less, using less load. So I'll give you an example. When I first came back to Nigeria, I realized that a few of the financial institutions that had ATMs and cash points on the road also had generators running through the night. And I believed in conversation, it turns out that security was a problem. So they needed to have security lights on, and they were using old type technology, which meant to light the compound with 10 floodlights, there'll be at 500 watts a pop or maybe 800 watts a pop. The simple solution we had initially when we spoke to them was, well, why don't you just turn all your lights into LEDs? So for 500 watts, you can light it between 50 watts and 100 watts, therefore lowering the load. And what that would automatically do is that you can then go on your inverter. Saves you a lot of money spent on diesel. And one of them took that on board so much, because you're talking single client, multiple outlets. They went nationwide to changing all the lights on all their banking outlets to floodlights. By doing that, they were able to get off the use of generators. And that was just a simple thing to do. So when you look at the CapEx on the LED lighting, which they did, and you look at the operational expenditure, which they were spending on diesel to run the gens overnight, it was a no-brainer for them. So looking at experiences, that would be one that was also quite important. We also had the opportunity to work with, I think, DFID at some point. And I believe Lagos State had some funding that came through, and there are 170 schools in Lagos, which are model schools, I believe they were referred to, that are purely run off solar. I think there were some of the schools in Lagos that then took you to, I think, 11 primary healthcare centers or 1 or 2 hospitals. That was in Lagos. That was a funding by the FID, but that was in Lagos. That meant that the kids, and I'll share another little experience with you. One of the schools is in Bagada. And when we went for a revisit about 12 months later, the principal shared a thought with us. And the principal of the school said that the minute the solar units came on, and the kids realized that they had 24 hours in the schools, what the kids were doing was the one really going home. So there was no rush to go home. There'll be no lights at home, and they were staying over either to check their phones or whatever it is they were doing. And the school therefore thought, well, we already have the kids here anyway. They're not going home. And all they did was started to offer extra lessons. So for you to be in the compound, in the school compound, whether you want to share a phone after work, it's totally voluntary, but they were sharing extra lessons. And she said they noticed that that transpired into better grades in the same year that happened. So we're sharing experiences there from different ways. Then I'll touch on the fast food industry, some of our experiences. We had a client. What the client was doing was running a little kiosk of a major outlet. So there would be like power site unit. So the little kiosk would serve something different on fast food. The main kiosk would have served something a little bit more indigenous, or maybe at least more solid food, whilst the other one was serving snacks. And a lot of the times what they were forced to do was they would be taking power of the generator from the little kiosk. What we then did was gave them the ability by offering a smaller system, off-grid system, where they could actually start to run the kiosk completely off-grid, which meant they're not necessarily having to, it gave them room for expansion, gave them room to actually reach parts of the rural areas or those towns are put kiosks in places that had no availability to power. I mean, that's just giving you some of our life experiences that we have here. But having said that, I think we could go on and on and on. But the essence of renewable starts to become a very important aspect of driving health, driving economy, driving all sorts of different areas like we mentioned before. And that's from my experience. Again, I hope I've covered most of the points.
Yes, you have. Thank you very much. Thank you very much, Mr. Tayo. Yes, you did justice to that question. Okay, so our next question is to Mr. David. How can African consumers access quality and affordable renewable energy solutions to address the rising energy costs effectively? I know that there are maybe questions in the QA that are related to this. So by the time we take all these questions, then we will then take on the ones in the Q&A. And if the sender, if you still have questions, just go ahead and send in your question and we will take all of them. So Mr. David.
Okay, all right, thank you, Zinde. The keywords here, accessibility, affordability, and quality. The first thing to do, I would like to do is to begin to show people using cost-benefit analysis on how renewable energy could be cheaper in terms of real-life application, because currently we have installation everywhere. Presently, we're installing, working with Destar, 945 kilowatt peak solution for Coca-Cola in Edo State in Nigeria. And it's strictly for daytime load because they are adopting an hybrid solution, you know, to make their spending on power generation as low as possible. So if you have a business that is using, let's say typically you're using a 30 kVA diesel generator that runs for 12 hours in a day, and then you're running for like 30 days. And then the capacity of that generator is about just a 3/4 of the capacity. So that 30 kVA generator is going to consume about 5.2 liters of diesel a day. And so 5.2 liters a day multiplied by 12 hours, as in 5.2 liters per hour, sorry, and then 5.2 liters of diesel per hour, and then you multiply that by 12 hours in a day. And then with 30 days of usage, you're going to spend about 1.3 million naira, monthly, to power that generator or that facility. And then in 5 years, as an example, you're going to spend about 80 million naira. 80 million naira to power. I'm not even talking about the repairs, maintenance cost and all that. I'm referring to the cost of diesel. Currently, the diesel is about, let's say, about 720 naira per liter. So you're going to spend about 80.8 million naira in 5 years to run that facility using 30 kVA generator. But you can use between 18 million to 20 million naira, to set up a renewable energy solution that can last you between 8 to 10 years. And some of these solutions will give you a warranty of 5 years. So within that 5 years, if anything happens, I'm happy to stay here. Like Arnergy system solution gives 5 years warranty on the battery and the inverter, and that is a good solution. That makes it affordable. So if you have a diesel 30 kVA generator that is going to give you, you're going to spend 80 million naira in 5 years, and you also have a system that's going to spend between 18 to 20 million naira, in 5 years, and you save how much? Over 60 million naira. That makes access using renewable energy, solution very affordable. Now, going by, let's say for people that may want to access renewable energy, the first thing you need to do is to ensure that you buy your product from a recognized brand to establish quality. Arnergy has a name, Arnergy has a brand. Our company also have a name and brand and all that. Don't go to quack, because what people do these days is just to sometimes, for example, typical example, they go to, if you go to Laba, you have so many good systems, but some people sell substandard systems. And before you know it, 2 years, 1 year, you don't have that battery anymore. And so ensure that at any point in time, all your solution must come from a recognized brand, because most of these brands have a name to protect. And then they will also give you, ensure that any solution that you want to buy, that you have warranty. And let's say for lithium battery, in most cases, you have warranty of, let's say, 5 years. And then for gel battery, normally they give you 2 years warranty. Insist on those warranties so that if anything happens, the manufacturer can replace, the system for you. And whenever you want to buy any system, ask for the data sheet of that system. Ask for the certification like IEC certificate or UL certificate, because that IEC certificate, International Electrotechnical Commission certification, also testify to the quality of that systems. There are many people out there that if you ask them of those systems, or those certifications, they cannot give to you. And once you cannot see that number, that system number, the certification, don't buy, because the quality of that system is not guaranteed. Another thing that you need to do, let's say for some systems, to make it affordable, you can buy on lease to own. Arnergy does lease to own system. You make initial deposit, they release the system to you. You use the system and you pay it on a monthly basis until you finish paying. It can run between 24 months to 36 months. Any company that gives you system on pay-go basis can guarantee you the quality of that system. Because if the system is not good, if the system is not of quality, they will not be able to give it to you to pay on installment, because if your system is not working, you can't pay back. And so these are some of the steps that you need to take to ensure that, number one, you have access to quality system. And then in terms of using the system on a pay-go basis, on a lease-to-own basis, it becomes affordable to you, because you may not have, to bring 18 million, and pay at once. You can spread that money. There are commercial banks. There are Bank of Industry is also willing to, in Nigeria, is willing to fund, the purchase of these systems. And of course, I mentioned earlier that World Bank, through NEP, is also subsidizing some of these systems. And of course, Arnergy is also one of the companies that World Bank has actually verified, and approved to join that program. And all the products that are under that NEP, program has been certified by World Bank. You cannot just deploy any system that has not been pre-qualified. And so some of these things are what gives you confidence to patronize this company and have a solution that can stand the test of time, And another thing you need to do is to ensure that before you buy any solution, ensure that you do proper audits to identify your actual need. There's what is called sizing, in renewable energy solution. Ensure you have the proper sizing. Ensure that you do proper audit. In some of the companies that we have done audit for, by just doing audit alone, we're able to reduce their energy consumption by 30%. And that further reduced their energy cost by 30%. And in some company, what we did was to change, we retrofit some of the equipment, the appliances that they have. We changed their bulbs, we changed their AC to AC inverter. Currently for people that are using solar freezer. So whenever you want to buy appliances, ensure that those appliances that you buy and that the wattage of those appliances are as low as possible. And that will ensure that you have energy efficiency. And by you having energy efficiency, automatically your cost will certainly come down. And then whatever solution that you want to get for yourself become affordable. I've also noticed in the market that sometimes people only do inverter without solar panel. And they use the grid electricity to charge those systems. When you do that, when you are charging, there's an energy loss. Let's say, for example, you have your inverter, and then you are charging with the grid. When you are charging that system, there's energy loss in between when you charge, when it gets to 100%, when you charge, let's say from 0 to 100%. And when you are also using the system, there's also energy loss. Who pays for that loss, for those losses? It is you. Because assuming if you're unprepared, you will see that if you have bought, let's say, for example, maybe 10,000 Naira power from, let's say, Eco District, you know that within 1 month, as you're charging your system, that prepared meter is running faster. It doesn't help you. So instead of you using only inverter, also introduce solar panel that will help to charge the system. For some people that are using, let's say, like, for example, like schools, most of your systems are, what you need is daytime load. In most cases, you may not need storage. You can use PV inverter, just like what Coca-Cola is doing in Benin, strictly PV inverter. And that allows them to do hybrid, solution, where they combine generator, maybe at night they use generator, and then daytime, which their load, is higher, they'll switch onto PV inverter. And that helps to, to reduce the cost of, power. So it is important that you follow through all these steps. And I can assure you that not only will you have access to affordable solar solution, you will have quality solution. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Mr. David. That was really in depth. Thank you. Okay, so we are running out of time, and we'll really just breeze through the remaining questions. So let's shorten our response time. The next question is for Amma. In terms of finances and efficiency, how do renewable energy sources compare to traditional power sources?
Okay, so just to give a brief answer, I will talk about the financing aspect in terms of profitability of the two traditional energy sources, that's fossil fuel versus solar projects. For the profitability for a renewable project such as solar to be profitable, it really depends on how much capital upfront investment you put in. So basically, there are no hidden costs where what you put in is what you get out. When you compare it to the fossil fuel industry, you are sensitive to so many factors. You, for instance, calculate your 4-year plan where you expect that you would price your fuels at $80 per barrel or whatever. Then all of a sudden, COVID hits, and you have prices dropping all the way to the negatives. There's Russia evasion and all of that. All of that sensitivity is affecting your business as a whole. You can also have the OPEC countries that are fighting back and forth. So political issues can also affect your business. So when you look at compare the two as a business, if you want to push forward renewables, which one would you choose? Factors that you can control or factors that you can't control, where these sensitivities affect the volatility of the petroleum industry or the fossil fuel industry. So that's where I would look at in terms of the financing aspects. Renewables are able to give you the yields that you expect. At least you can project in a number of years what you expect to save by implementing renewables into your grid systems. There's a company in Ghana. I just want to touch on the efficiency aspect, where there may be people who are interested in going into renewables, where you already have your building. So because your building is not so durable, you're not sure you want to put your solar panels on top of it. There's this company, probably you can even partner with them, Arnergy, where, you know, they are now innovating and trying to allow people to do, put the solar panels on carports, rotating solar panels and all of that. So all of these solutions are available to ensure that even if you've already put up your structure, which is not able to carry these heavy solar panels, there are other solutions available. So it's all about, you know, consultation, just to make sure you can get the best solutions out of the people who are ready to help. Thank you.
Thank you very much for that, Ama. So you can hear that if you feel where you live, your building might not be strong enough, just again, consultation. All you have to do is reach out, make your inquiry, and you can get the answers that you need. So just to remind the audience that the poll is still on. I can see 66% of the people have participated. So if you haven't filled the poll, kindly do so. We're coming to the end of the session shortly, so kindly respond to the poll. Okay, so we have, maybe we should take the questions from the Q&A now, okay? Just before I come to the speakers for their final words, let's quickly address some of the questions. So we have a question from Ayola Emmanuel. What methods can companies adopt to make green energy like solar accessible to end users, looking at the high upfront costs of these technologies? Ama, I'm coming to you. I think you should take this question.
Can you repeat the question again?
Okay, so what methods can companies adopt to make green energy like solar accessible to end users, looking at high upfront cost of these technologies?
I think there are companies that deploy pre-financing. I think probably Tayo and even David mentioned some of it. So if a company is pre-financing some of these projects, at least you are seeing that they are guaranteeing or they are putting their life on it, that at the end of X number of years, you can benefit from this. And then you pay maybe in monthly installments back to the company for them to recoup their investment. So this is one method that can be applied.
Thank you very much, Ama. So Ayola Emmanuel, if you're listening, I'm sure your questions have been answered, but if you need more clarification, just send in a question. Okay, there's a question from Moses. How reliable and efficient are solar solutions? I'll come to Mr. Tayo to take this question. Mr. Tayo.
Thanks, Ezina. Talking about reliability, the question is reliability and efficiency. And I like to draw on life experiences because people can relate to things that they can see, things that they can do. David mentioned a very good point earlier about product and product efficiency. Now, here's the thing. If you look around, I'll give you an example. In Kaduna, going into Kano State, for example, there are so many miles of solar streetlights. And those solar streetlights now, I think on the Malam have now been there now going on about 2-3 years. So just drawing on those, I'm talking about reliability. You're looking at that. That's just something that is there for you to draw on as an experience. Despite the fact that additionally, this having the lights on at night will boost security. One aspect of it. Now coming back to efficiency. Efficiency can be looked at in 2 ways. That is financial cost. How efficient is the way I'm using my money to generate power? And all you have to do is to be able to look like, I think David mentioned, and I mentioned some of it, is just have an audit. Have somebody come around to you and just look at what am I using and what can be my option B. And therefore, if I go into X amount for CapEx, what is my return on investment period? It becomes a very scientific prospect. 1 + 1 is 2. If it makes sense, you go. If it doesn't, you say, sorry, no can do. And those little things, let's keep it simple, like the KISS syndrome. Keep it simple, stupid. Just absolute simplicity on it. When everybody's talking a lot of big English and everybody's talking to the neighbor, you're looking on Facebook, you get all sorts of information. Just educate yourself. You got Arnergy, you got companies like ours, you got companies like David. Now, all you have to do, and the whole thing comes together between the issue of Arnergy, who are the sponsoring this, and all the other companies who are on board there, as in Arnergy then comes in as an OEM, they come up with something. But at the end of the day, we're all into it because we trust the product that comes in. So product information becomes more key. And then going into cost efficiency, all you have to do on the return on investment, what is my payback period? And then when you then start to add that to the fact that what options are there financially where I don't have to come up with an offer, then there was a cost of finance. So roll all of that together, and therefore I'm not preaching to you because I don't know if you're the converted or not, but you are able to make an informed decision. Thanks, Ezena.
Thank you very much for that, Mr. Tayo. Okay, so the next question is from Ayodeji Karim. What is the reliability of solar charging system during rainy season, and how can this be mitigated to afford power outage from solar inverter? I would like Mr. David to take this question.
Okay, I would just say there are two things. First thing, you need to do the proper sizing. There's some calculation behind solar solutions, you understand? So when we look at the load, we look at the location, and then we can give you solutions that whether rainy day or any other day, you can still have, your power running. And another thing you need to look at is the storage. There are no two ways about it. The panel charges, the battery. And so if, let's say, for example, you want to power, let's say, your house or your business. So what we need to look at is okay, what am I using this system for? The appliances that are involved, and then how many hours. And that will now determine the number of panels to be deployed. Once we establish that, we'll now look at it, okay, on a rainy day, what happened? So we give you some storage that we know that maybe daytime, you can decide to deploy a PV inverter. At that time, you're getting your solution directly from the sun. And then the storage, the battery is there to protect you in case there's cloudy weather, there's a rainy day, and then the battery serves you. So you can just also do an hybrid system. So it's not a one answer fit all. It's just for us to sit with them. Normally your installer or whoever will sit with you, have proper discussion and look at how it is. Of course, it's something that is doable. It's not a big deal. That is it.
Thank you very much, Mr. David. I think there's another question related to what you just answered. So maybe you just take on that question at the same time. Someone is asking, actually, the person called out for you. So thanks, Mr. David. Can you explain more on PV inverter for day loads?
Okay, it's a simple put, without going to technical thing. A PV inverter just means that you can actually, get your power directly from the sun. It doesn't need to pass through your battery, your storage. So daytime, if you have a PV inverter, you're going to get your light, you're going to get your power directly from the sun. It doesn't need to pass through the inverter, that you have. So it's a direct connection and all that. Like I mentioned, the one that we are installing for MPC, there's no storage, there's no battery. It's just only your panel and the inverter. So that is called PV inverter. Then for maybe those that need it for night time, when there's no sun, and that's when you can do some other hybrid inverter, such that, okay, it charges your battery, can now be getting, your power directly, from your battery. So that's just what it is.
Okay, and there's a follow-on question from Ayodeji. You answered his question earlier. He asked, can solar inverter provide energy up to 300 kVA for data center, and can it work 24 hours, 7 days? So, Mr. David.
Sure.
Okay.
It can.
Okay. The next question from Ajani. How often does solar need maintenance in the long term? So I know you've touched on this, Mr. David, but maybe you just touch on it again.
Okay, usually, like I said, every system has, solar system is just like your phone. Every system that you have to charge has what we call charge cycle. You understand? So sometimes when you buy your phone, you charge, you can use it for 2 days without having to charge your system again. And so there are some systems that the charge cycle is 3,000, some 5,000, some 6,000 and all that. So as time goes on, you discover that the holding capacity of that battery become weaker. Do you understand? So you need to make provisions that as time goes on, you have to replace those battery. For gel battery, you could say, lifespan could be, let's say, 4 years, 5 years, depending on usage. So at that point, what you need to do is to ensure that you have money to replace only the battery. Of course, your panel can last you up to 20 to 25 years. So you may not need to touch your panel. And then some other maintenance has to do, if you are using tubular battery, that has water. So from time to time, every 6 months, you need to maybe change the water, to a new one. And then your solar panel, maybe every month, you need to be able to clean it so that dust, because you need it to charge your battery faster. And then from time to time, you may have to clean, your panel. So you pay a token. If you cannot climb your rooftop, do you understand, to clean, you can only get people to, and that doesn't cost much, So those are basic things that you do. Other things has to do with normal maintenance, in case there's any system that is not working, maybe there's a surge. Of course, there are some systems that have surge protector, so it's a function of usage. If you use it very well, efficiently, you may not need to bother about maintenance. Of course, maintenance is also a function of the type of system that you use. If you use lithium battery, it's almost zero maintenance, but if it's tubular battery, you need to do some minor maintenance, minor maintenance, once in a while.
Okay. Thank you very much, Mr. David. Thank you for those insights. So we will be ending the poll now. I think we have about 83% responses, so I think we can proceed with that. Let's see how people responded. So the first question, since the beginning of the ongoing global energy crisis, how high is the increase in your energy costs? So 7% said up to 50%, 40% said 50% to 100%, 33% said 100% to 200%. Wow. 7% said 200% to 500% increase, and 13% said above 500 increase. So this is really alarming. The second question, how much on average does your household or business spend annually on generators? That's diesel, fuel, repair, maintenance, all of that. About 40% said less than $1,000. And 13% said $1,000 to $5,000. 27% said $5,000 to $10,000. And 20% said above $20,000. Again, That is huge. And when discussing the switch to renewable energy, which of the following best describes you? So about 20% said they've made some inquiries. 7% said I've read reviews and compared prices. 27% said I'm planning to make the switch. And 47% said I currently use renewable energy. That's good. That's amazing. Are you aware of any agency or organization that finances or offers flexible payment plans to households and business owners willing to switch to renewables? 20% said yes, and 80% said no. Okay, so we still have, to the speakers, we still have to elaborate on this. Mr. David, would you want to sort of, on this number 4 questions about flexible payment plans? I know that Amma touched on it a little bit, but if you can just provide a bit more information.
Oh, flexible payment plan is there, for some people they call it pay-go, some they call lease to own. So what you do is that you reach out to a company like Arnergy. I would say that because you have got a system that people can pay on installment basis. So you make an initial deposit of say 10%, and then or 20% or 30%, depending on your credit history. And then they spread the other 70% for you. It could be 12 months, it could be 24 months, even up to 36 months. So you pay on installment basis until you pay off the cost. It's not subscription, you're paying for the cost of owning that system and all that. And for a system that gives you a warranty of 5 years and then have a lifespan of 10 to 12 years, and then you're given opportunity to pay within 3 years and to own the system, it's a fantastic way of assessing renewable energy solution. And then if that doesn't work, you can do what we call energy as a service, where company comes in and set up a solution for you, just like the same way your normal disco do. And so whatever energy they give you a meter, so whatever energy that you consume, you pay for what you consume, and you're guaranteed 24 hours, light or power. So that's the way it is. And I must also say that in this kind of arrangement, if you default, usually you're given 30 days to max 60 days grace period. If you default, the company has the right to recover the system from you if you're on lease to own. And then whatever you paid, will not be refunded back to you. And so it's something that so many people have jumped on. In fact, that actually was a game changer in Africa. That actually opened up the industry. So let people key in, reach out to Arnergy. They have the structure, they have the people to do that for you. And it's another way of you, ensuring the quality of the systems. If you are in doubt and maybe you don't trust the quality, do pay-go system. Once it serves you right, you can now pay off. You can pay-go, and then if money comes in, you can pay off, and then you move on. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Mr. David. And just to add to that, so like Mr. David mentioned, Arnergy offers lease to own option. And Arnergy also partners with some commercial banks and even non-commercial banks as well. So if you reach out, you will get all the information and support that you need. There's a question by Ajani as well. How reliable and efficient is solar solutions? And cost is also a key factor to consider. If one considers the energy demands to run a hospital and then the cost of solar alternative, it becomes very difficult task, especially for a startup. I spend nothing less than 150,000 every month to run my hospital facility. It's quite challenging. I will let Mr. Tayo sort of just give a little bit of maybe support to this user. Mr. Tayo.
Yeah, thanks, Emma. Thanks, Lizzie. So he runs a hospital. Can you just run that question, the question by me very quickly again?
Yes, so the person said how reliable and efficient the solar solutions, which I know we've also addressed, and the person mentioned cost is also a key factor to consider. If one considers the energy demands to run a hospital and then the cost of solar alternative, it becomes very difficult task, especially for a startup. And then the person said, I spend nothing less than 150,000 every month to run my hospital facility. It's quite challenging. So what's a few words
Okay.
here.
This was touched on briefly earlier on when I talked of the relationship between reliability, efficiency, energy conservation, and what you need to have the optimum in all those areas. I think David touched on a lot of other factors as well. But for a startup, there's no better time to have a look at what your options are as of now. Yes, you're looking at thinking about cost, but until you know what your costs are on the alternative, at the moment, you already know what your costs are as far as your diesel generator is concerned, how many hours you run it, what your peak periods are, and how much you're paying per day, per month, but whatever, your accounts will have that. Now, with all these areas that's been touched on, what you need to do, reach out to Arnergy, and that'll be your easiest point on the moment because that's the platform you're on. And all you need them to do is send an engineer around and do an audit for you. Once you have that done, you're able, again, I mentioned as I went back before, it will be an easy decision for you to make. You then look at what David's been touching on. What options do I have? Do I want a lease to own? Do I want to buy it outright because I have enough capex to do that? What's my return on investment when I do this? How much diesel would I spend by the time I own it? All those questions will be answered in a flash just by having your audit done. Your audit is a phone call away or a text away. You owe it to that business, being a startup, to be able to complete the whole financial analysis of the profitability of the hospital, if you go down that route as well, as opposed to the route which you're going now. Quite easy.
Thank you very much, Mr. Tayo. Thank you for that. Ayodeji Oyejide is asking, for the video to be made available. Absolutely. It will be on our YouTube channel. So if you go to our YouTube channel, Arnergy Solar, you will find the video there as well. It will be uploaded once we're done with the session. So there are other questions. I see a question on partnership. If you want to partner with Arnergy, you can just send an email to sales@arnergy.com. sales@arnergy.com. If you have further inquiries, questions, clarifications, or maybe some questions that we're not able to take in this session, you can also send your questions to sales@arnergy.com, and all questions will be answered. I would want us to bring the session to a close. Really, we've gone way past our time, but I know the discussion has been really interactive and it's been interesting, and we've learned a lot. So just a final advice from the speakers. So I would let each person in 1 minute really give a final advice to if you were to give a final advice to homeowners, to business managers listening to this conversation, and of course, taking into consideration their responses on the poll, the 4 questions that they answered and how their spend has increased, what their situation is now in terms of how the lights and the generators and all of that is happening. What advice would you give to homeowners and business managers? So let's let Ama start, and then followed by Mr. Tayo, and then David.
Okay, so from the poll, I think it's obvious that we cannot shy away from the change that is happening. And in my very brief words, all I'll say is act now or fail later. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Amma. That was spot on. That was really spot on. So, Mr. Tayo.
Sorry, hi. Yes, I'm not muted. I think, again, like Ahmed said, there's a very, very simple situation. Why don't I keep more money in my pocket? All I have to do is reach out to the platform and let them give me an audit and have an option. Look at what my choices are. It's about more money in my pocket, achieving exactly what I'm doing now.
Absolutely. Thank you very much, Mr. Tayo. And Mr. David?
Yeah, so what I want to say is that switch to renewable energy now. It is important you do that now because the rising cost is not coming down. Everybody, the world all over is moving towards clean energy. Nigeria just launched energy plan by 2030, universal access 2060 is carbon zero economy. Even some of the equipment that we're getting from America, from Europe and all that, very soon they are going to change from the fossil fuel, to renewable. Cars, electric cars is already here. It is high time you transit from, depending on the grid that has collapsed 7 times this year, to renewable energy. And the best way to do that is to start discussion with Arnergy now. Thank you.
So like the speakers have said, start a discussion with Arnergy today. Whatever projects you have, whatever you want to power, it starts with an energy audit. Yeah, Arnergy has systems, that services across different sectors, from businesses to household, residential homes, hospitals, hotels, telecom, sites, base stations, and all of that. A lot, under the umbrella. So just reach out, send a message, an email to sales@arnergy.com. You can also send an email to support@arnergy.com, and I'm sure we'll be very happy to support you, to help you, to provide that reliable electricity that you need. So we've come to the end of the session. If we're not able to take your questions, please send us an email with your questions. We've already taken too much of everyone's time, but it's been an interesting session, and we look forward to seeing you the next quarter. But for now, thank you for taking our time from your busy schedule to join us. We appreciate your presence, your contributions, your questions, and conversations like this are a step in the right direction towards achieving stable and reliable electricity in Africa. And like our amiable speakers have said collectively, we all have a part to play in this. Take that bold step, right? Reach out, make your inquiries, and you will get the support that you need. Reliable and renewable energy has come to stay, and it's going to be here with us for a very long time. So thank you all, and have an amazing day.
Thank you.